was posting pictures. That's why I said.
Oh, okay.
Dinner last night.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, and even that, like that all comes into play when we think about how we communicate and setting those expectations. For me, I tell my clients, you're not going to find me on social media. You know, if you want social media video, I'll bring in team members. Like we've got Brian Huma. He's young, right? He's young. He knows how to work it. He knows, you know what I mean? I got no problem leveraging the value of my team as part of my unique value proposition. And I am not too egomaniacal to say, I'm not great at everything. And social media is something that I will outsource. I will understand that it has its value, but that's an expectation that I set very early on. So if they want that, we can provide it, but that comes from a higher performing professional in that field. And that expectation is like, oh, okay, cool. Because I used to try to be everything, and I'd sit there and I'd be like, I'm the marketer, I'm the advertiser, I'll take your pictures, I'll do this and I'll do that. And it was impossible to do anything on a high level. So I would set expectations, and then I would inevitably in some category fall short. Yeah. And then I'd have to do ground control cleanup, and or outsource or scramble or fake it till I make it. And that doesn't work effectively on any form of communication. If you're not genuinely, authentically communicating, then it's not going to translate at all.
Well, what you maybe didn't see for the camera was Alicia had made a magazine with all the expectations. Here's what we're going to do is custom to that property.
And most of the teams have that in part of their marketing, in part of their presentation, whether it's buyers or sellers, this is the process. This is what you can expect from us. We've got professional photography, stagers on request, but I'll tell you, people are forgetting the value of the Schedule A now. The Schedule A should reflect any of those commitments
on the listing.
For sure, because the situation where someone's like, oh, I thought this was the expectation. It says in your brochure that you offer this service, but in the listing Schedule A, there's no reference to it. Right. So now we have to start using, again, all of our tools to make sure that those are communicated clearly. And we talk about communication, and from my perspective, it's the end result. If you don't communicate effectively from the beginning to the end, you're going to be left with so many questions, so much confusion. What about this? What about that? Yeah. And we get agents calling, oh, it's a week before closing, and this just popped up, and this just popped up, and that just popped up, and I forgot this, and I forgot to check this. And we need to, from the beginning, set the expectations and then follow through. Right? So having them know is one thing, but having us follow through is the difference. And I think
it's a good spot to put on there, just on the site chart. We don't offer legal advice or tax advice on the listing side, and we do it on the Schedule B other side of it.
Correct. Actually, we just had Mark Morris revamp our Schedule B for us yesterday, and he brought back a lot of those old clauses that were just basic statements that you have to consult an accountant, you have to consult an environmental specialist, you need to consult a lawyer, a contractor, an engineer. We have limitations to our professional scope. And again, if you don't set those expectations from the beginning, you're going to be in for a really difficult situation, because they'll assume that you are the expert. Well, you're dealing with that freaking fiasco because he claims that you claim that you were a tax expert, right? So case in point.
I was the one where the Mark Morris side of it. Here's the condition, get your lawyer to look at it, get your accountant to look at it.
Set document expectations. Again, I know you guys are big on the structure in the organization, and most teams have all of this already in place. But for example, if you told your buyer that you need to get out to see properties the same day that hit the market 2 months ago, when they were focused on getting their down payment together, then they won't remember any of the details, right? So if you have, and this is one thing I will admit that I do, I can often over-explain things to clients, and then they forget. And then it's like, well, we discussed this. And they're like, that's where the value of covering your butt and follow-up email becomes the greatest tool that we can use. Hey, just want to reiterate, and same thing. If you've got ChatGPT and you've got everything in there, you can just prefix the standard. These are the expectations that we discussed. Now you got it in writing, and no one can ever say, he said this.
We've
Right.
even started in our automated, with documents are being sent through, after they've been signed, saying, just to reiterate.
Yep.
This, and saying the purpose of this document, like a frequent information guide. This is a required document that outlines your rights.
Right, when we get
Those
further
automated-
on in the course tonight, we get into the offer and communicating that. And it's amazing how many new agents will just send an offer without a conversation, without explanation. And what this talks about is in the email, present the offer, have the details. You're sending the offer. It's not like you're breaching confidentiality by talking about it in the email. And back in the day, we had the opportunity to present in front of a person. So your ability to communicate, if you were a bad communicator, you never did a deal. If you were a good communicator, you ended up doing lots of deals.
Yeah.
I remember when I started winning in competition against all these big time agents that had been around forever, and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I just talk to them. Like, I'm not.
Right.
And then they come in like bullies and they try to use all these tactics. And you're sitting there with a layman, a client, and they're going, I really didn't like Mr. Hotshot's attitude. It doesn't matter about the offer anymore because we're negotiating.
Right.
And then you can often, back in the day, you would negotiate right there at the table. You'd have your client out in the hall or in their car and you just, it'd be done. Now, communication takes on different forms. So,
Yeah, there's a lady from the agent from Barry. I don't know if she's still an agent or not. She would never talk to
yeah,
you. You call, you get a text back. Never could you have a voice conversation with her. An agent.
which is opposite because most agents would prefer a phone call because there used to be no record of it, right? You just be like, oh, on notes, we had a phone call. We discussed this, 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 and this, and this. And that used to be fine for notes. Now everybody's got to have some AI voice recorder or some type of thing, or you don't do a voice call. Everything's documented in writing.
The email is, we send it out before our DocuSign. 'Cause
No,
there's-
this is accurate. Oh, maybe.
No, we send it out before DocuSign. This is what you will be signing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's not really much room for explanation.
As soon as I know that the client relationship is going to become fiduciary, that there is going to be a conversation of agency, I will send everything. We learn a lot, have the contract ready, get it signed, and da, 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 da. I think if we look at the true nature of our fiduciary responsibility, we're not supposed to be that sort of self-serving. We should give them every opportunity to self-educate and then help them out. I find it a lot easier if I just say, here's everything up front. And I go, I'm not signing anything. I go, neither am I. It's not even filled out. This is for you to learn. Do you not want to review these ahead of time? And it's like, oh, wow, no one ever really, the last person that was here told me I needed to sign it. It's like, oh, well, here we go, right? Now, you draw a fine line. You got to get that contract signed, but you should communicate in advance. And that's what a lot of this is about, is just making sure that the communication happens well in advance. Okay, set communication expectations. Simple question, what is your preferred method of communication, right? A lot of senior citizens don't like emails. They don't want to DocuSign anything. They would prefer face-to-face. Even a phone conversation doesn't have the same effect. So, set expectations for communication. Pretty straightforward. How do you like to be communicated with? What's the best time to get a hold of you? If you're the type of agent or you have a team that you structure your hours, you can say, listen, I don't conduct business past 8 p.m., before 8 a.m. Set those expectations at 8 a.m. You'll hear from me. If you send me an email through the night, I'll respond in the morning. Again, you know what this is about. This is about circumventing that feeling a client can have of what are they doing for me, right? And this is one of the first things I learned from Eric when I joined the team, because he seems to be able to run his business, run his team, and still do 50, 60 deals himself while not looking stressed out or bothered by anything.
Right.
And he says the only way he can do that is by setting the expectations very clearly from the beginning. He says, I'm a top producing agent. I'm busy all the time, right? I'm available between these hours. I negotiate my offers on these days of the week. We list properties on this day of the week. This is the day our photographer, it's all broken down, and he doesn't give them any movement. Most of us don't have that volume to have that confidence. So we're almost pandering. Oh, well, whatever you like. And we're pretty flexible. I can email, I can text, but I tell people, if it's short and urgent, I'll give you a quick call. If it's just sort of a random conversation, text message is fine. Got a question about this, question about that. But if it's serious, if it's business related, it'll be done via email so that we both have timestamps and can document the conversations. And they all seem to really appreciate that communication. And every now and again, and I do love my old ladies, email is out. You're driving to their house and you hear it all. It's like, oh, I took a listing in Oshawa. It's like, oh, cool. It's like, no, I got to go and they only sign it in person. And you're like, oh, well, I might have referred that one out. You know what I mean? Maybe. But it's just, again, setting the expectations so that you don't lead to that disappointment. More times that client has the feeling of, I don't know if I chose the right agent, the less likely they are to listen to your advice when it really matters. Because most of us at the beginning will get the business, we'll get the contract signed, and then there's something that happens to us psychologically, and we put her into second gear and we just kind of cruise around until a deal happens.
Really great.
And then we're like, yeah. And that's great. Those are our two strengths, the sales side and then the negotiation fiduciary side. The agents who do incredibly well are incredibly good at that middle gap and the after. The mid-care and the aftercare is really where the future success, I think, lies. We can all learn how to use the right words and say the right things to get them to say yes to us, to sign the agreements, but you have to be able to sell that property. And we see it on teams. I don't know if how many non-family members do you have you recruited on the team?
We went through a few, we have 10.
They kind of come and go,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of what it is they're great at getting the business. But, and I say it's like, I don't care how many listings you get. I don't care how many BRAs you get signed because you tell them, oh, we got to sign a BRA before I show you a house, right? You have to convert that into a commission check.
Totally.
And if you're not good at that middle part of the communication, helping them with the emotional stuff, when the motivation dips, we've all known that. It's like, oh, I got to buy a house in the next 90 days. I got my rate hold. And then day 60 goes and you're like, you're not really looking at any houses. Yeah. And then 6 months later, you do the deal. So you have to be able to navigate and communicate in that way. And doing it their way where they're comfortable just makes it easier. Makes it a heck of a lot easier. Set contingencies. Again, you learn this from time. It's like cover your ass, be prepared. Once we set the expectations for communication, we also have to let them know that this business is not on a train track. That at any moment in time, something can come up and think, oh, you were looking for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow, and now all of a sudden you fell in love with a townhouse. You have to be able to set those expectations, and having contingencies and backup plans and just in cases are going to make that much more effective. So this talks is telling me, he's like, do you prefer texting or phone calls? What happens if I can't get a hold of you? Like, it's fairly rudimentary. But yeah, it's really just a matter of being prepared. Like what will happen if a home comes on the market that's perfect for your buyers the weekend that your sister is getting married? You know what I mean? What if you're busy? Have you communicated with them on how that will be managed? I just went on my first 2-week vacation. 2 weeks is the longest I've ever left my business. And I'll certainly do it as often as I can, because you really do get to disconnect at the 2-week mark. Like day 11, you're just like, you forget. You're gone. I loved it.
I thought I was a tequila drinker.
Right. But then because I was still working while I was away and I was taking calls and I was sending emails, I was more or less like an administrator setting appointments for all my team agents and all my clients. Oh, there's a house that just hit the market. I'm available Thursday at noon. I know this client has a limited window between a very demanding work schedule. And when she asks to look at a house, she's sure she likes it. So you scramble around. Well, that house happened to sell in 3 offers that afternoon before we could even make an appointment. But it's important that she understood that in that situation, she was fully covered. Again, another major benefit of a team. You never had that before. I'd have to refer it out to another agent and just have faith that it would be handled. Little things,
Yeah.
right? So having those backup plans, right, would really, really help. And again, you read through the script here and they're like, oh, well, I'll be away at my sister's wedding. I'll be back on such and such a date. Clear communication, articulate what's happening. Do I have to tell them I'm leaving on vacation? Like, I don't know. What if they call you while you are? How are they going to feel as your agent to find out that you're in Mexico and they've got an offer on their house? And we know a lot of agents that'll try to work remote from these certain circumstances. And your client doesn't want that. Your client doesn't deserve that.
Yeah.
So again, set that expectation and get those contingencies in place so you can live your life the way you want. For Eric, what happens if something happens after 8 p.m.? Okay, if we're in negotiations, I'm available 24 hours.
Mhm.
If there's something that is vital to a transaction, I'm available 24 hours. But if it's just business, 8 to 8, the evenings are for myself and my family. You can email me all throughout the night. I'll get back to you the next day. And obviously the proof is in the pudding because, he's our number one guy. All right, set up-to-date market expectations. We do this constantly. This goes in, talks about, are you going to give 30-day updates, once a week updates? I feel that it really depends on the client and how hot they are, what they're looking for. But updating your client's view of the market is another way for us to show our expertise. They need to understand the realities of the market they are in. This is probably one of the hardest. There's always kind of an argument when you're trying to openly articulate the market conditions and all they think you're trying to do is push their price up or down, right? So you immediately get to this stage of communication and you're met with sales resistance. So it doesn't matter how good of a communicator you are, that you're doing it in a way that they appreciate. You need to find a way to communicate the value of the market in a way that does not introduce sales resistance. And again, that comes from practicing scripts, working overtime, and the years of experience that come from it.
I love the realtor.ca viewing list.
Yeah.
You ever see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the stats you just put it, 200 people looked at it online. So many
It's irrefutable.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we do the same thing. We'll do a full report from our marketing
Yeah.
manager. He'll go through all the social media. These are the clicks, likes, shares, and we can see the performance. And then we've got all of our static data that shows like the first 3 weeks of the listing are by far the hottest. And then it carries down and goes, well, why is that? It's like, because the buyers work in a flow. So in any given moment, we've got X number of serious buyers. You're only going to sell X number of houses in a period of time because there's that number of serious buyers. Once those serious buyers have made their commitment, the next wave of serious buyers comes through. We only once in my career did we see a massive surplus of buyers, and that was during lockdown because so many people were migrating from the city and we had nothing to sell them. So they all got in line. And then now we have to communicate the market conditions, and it was easy then. It was easy. Every buyer was like 200 over. And you're like, whoa, we need to think about this. What's going to happen in 2 years when the market finds its equilibrium again and you overpay? Well, I'm not really overpaying. No, you're overpaying. Like, these are not market conditions. This is not natural market growth. This is competition. This is ego. This is, I got to win. And I'm sure you have some clients, we all have some clients that are like, hey, I got to sell this. I'm losing money. I'm underwater.
We just let them go.
Yeah.
I
Can't help you.
I can't get that.
Yeah. And we're doing that a lot right now. It reminds me of 2008, right? Where it's like, I paid X number of dollars for this house. You can't tell me it's worth the same. I've been here 5 years. It's like, yeah, we saw back then in 2008, the great recession. That was only a 20% drop in average list price, average sale price. We saw like a 48% drop after the pandemic, but they didn't call that a great reset. They didn't do anything. They just made it seem like it was never going to happen and prices stayed high. So yeah, being able to communicate all of that and do it well, articulate your knowledge of the market so you don't come off like you're just trying to push their list price lower or their sale price higher or their purchase price higher. Let's skip a few slides.
How you doing, Aldrich?
Hi there. I'm doing great. I'm sorry. I'm doing
He's hanging
great.
out with his dogs. He's got a Shih Tzu and a Jack Russell Terrier.
Aw.
Do you have them with you right now?
No, they're downstairs.
Okay, all right. Well, we may want to meet them before we sign off today. All right, slide 12, 3 steps to gaining referrals. This one is a big one in the participation guide, so we're probably just kind of skip through this one a little bit. Without going through the step-by-step in the participation guide, you're going to get lots in translation, but I'll give you the cliff notes. For the 3 simple steps for getting referrals, provide value. We sat in a 3-hour class today, should have been 4.5 hours. We probably could have kept going for sure. And that whole class was about providing value. That just goes to show you how important it is. Provide value through stellar service. That's a KW. We are at our core people who love to serve. And I think that's very true when you meet the people who are truly KW, that we all have that servant's heart, that we'd rather help than take. We provide education and advice and care. We don't just talk. We mean what we say.
Blah, blah, blah.
Hey, that was me. Like that. I have this innate brain that wants to keep, more. And the first time you get caught over speaking and it becomes serious, then you're like, oh yeah. So I only ramble on when I feel safe. So you guys should feel honored. If I was nervous or uncomfortable, I'd probably just be reading.
Just be blah.
And I'd be like, blah. And you'd be like, oh, Mike, where was your pizzazz? I'd be like, I've been here all day.
I like the blah side, not the blah.
Yeah, the blah blah is fine when you're just
Too many words.
shooting the shit. But when you're talking business and you're trying to articulate your value, you trim it out.
Nobody likes that, that's right.
And that is the one best blessing of becoming broker of record. I do not have the time that I did before. So everything's short, everything is to the point. And to be honest, everyone that I deal with seems to appreciate it, right? And I put my foot in my mouth a lot less often. So number 2 is asking for help, right? So asking for help is a simple step in getting for referrals. Once you establish that relationship with a client or a friend or a colleague or a cashier or anybody that recognizes you on a regular basis, asking for help lowers their defenses. It makes you come off as humble, and then they're more inclined to be helpful. They quoted the book, Exactly What to Say, A Real Estate Agent's Guide. I've read that cover to cover it's so easy. You can get through it like in 2 hours. It's short.
It's 31 points.
Yeah, it's quite short.
But is it, people have been talking about a bunch recently, but how old is it?
He's got a series.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's an author that started Exactly What to Say to communicate with people, and then it got applied to the business world, and then he's kind of geared a book for a bunch of different sales. Yeah, and his one for real estate is very straightforward.
It's very much objection.
Yeah, and how to approach a subject and start the conversation that lowers resistance, right? So asking for help, let people know that your business is based on referrals. Your conversation book has some, again, you don't have your guide with you, but there's some scripts in there that I would now say, hey, pick a partner and start rehearsing. We're not, again, I've got an hour and a half. We're not going to get into that, but we could. And then rewards. Reward the behavior for the referral. Don't wait for the closing to ask for the referral. And as soon as the client or member of your sphere of influence tells you, that gave you their information, mentions you on social media, or someone calls based on their recommendation, immediately turn around and thank them so that they understand that that referral was received, and then it'll encourage them to more. The class today went so far as to talk about giving them gifts, gift cards, thank yous, things like that. Really depends on the nature of your team and how much expenses you want
I think
to
when they
pull out
talk
of
about
there.
the gift, they're talking to the client. What can you do as a reward to a referring person?
Well, they say right here, send a gift card, bring them a cup of coffee, take them out for dinner.
What's the difference?
You're building, you're reestablishing that relationship outside of the professional, thanking them for bringing you more professional
Honing in
relationships.
on that as a broker record.
Oh, okay, sure.
we're not allowed to get bird dog fees.
Correct.
And then it gets blurry into what you can reward them for.
Correct.
Distinguish that for me. I can give them a gift card, which is a bird dog fee.
If we are following the letter of the law, there can be nothing that would exhibit monetary value, even a bottle of wine. We are not supposed to be paying a non-registrant anything of value for the furtherance of a trade. So in that regard, you are exactly right.
Put that in two tests.
Yes,
You're not allowed to offer a fee to incentivize somebody to give you the referral.
correct.
I would assume that's bird dog. That's what it means going ahead of.
Yes.
Can you do it at the back end?
I think if you are not in a transaction with that person and they are not getting the money based off of the trade,
Whether I get the deal or not.
whether you get the deal or not. And I think that's probably why this guide is telling you to do it before the other deal closes, because it kind of avoids that fee. But I do have agents call me and say, oh, hey, I give my brother $1,000 for every referral he sends me. And I'm like, no, I didn't hear that. You can't pay someone. And then we get into the argument of third-party lead gen companies and how do they collect a referral fee and how do they get paid? And I say those have deep, long contracts that can operate in the gray because they're providing a service that you're paying for a service. You're not doing what would the bird dog fee, the underhanded thing of saying, hey, well, everything you bring me, I'll give you a piece. Used to happen all the time. And I know a lot of agents that will still do lead gen bird dog where they'll say, oh, if you know someone thinking, give them my name and I'll give you a $50 gift card, or call us and you'll automatically win this. But if we have disclaimers, if we have rules and regulations, if we make sure it's clear that it's not part or contingent on the sale or the commission, then are you really incentivizing anything, or are you just showing genuine appreciation? And if it's a small gift card and it's outside of you're not talking about the deal, you're not saying, oh, thanks for bringing me that $20,000 commission check, here's your cut. I think in this form of the referral side of it, I think you'd be okay if you treated your favorite referral clients to dinner every now and again, as long as you did not arrange with them, hey, everyone you bring to me, I'll give you a bit. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people try it. Well, before I was in real estate, I worked at the Home Depot, and I had 3 agents that worked at the Home Depot as well, but they only worked there for lead gen. So they worked in like the flooring department, and they would help people load their trucks with flooring. And then they'd be like, so what are you doing with all this flooring? And they're like, oh, actually, you know, we're swapping out the carpet for hardwood because we're getting ready to sell our house. Oh, here's my card, right? They eventually got in trouble for that as well, because from both Home Depot and from Rico, that's not the intended purpose, right? So
I'd be so
we see less bird dogging nowadays than we used to, but we see different bird dogging now. It's in the form of a PlayStation or tickets or whatever, and it hides now behind a raffle prize or whatever. Like Brian, our young guy, he got like super amazing tickets to the Leafs, like $3,000 tickets. Like he really goes all out. He got 2,500 entries for his ticket raffle. And when everyone signs up for that ticket raffle, they all have to click a disclaimer that they consent to being contacted for real estate purposes and all of these new modern things. Me, part of my brain still looks as all that like it's bird dogging. You're still incentivizing someone with a gift under the guise that they're now a real estate lead. And then I look at Brian and I go, well, how's the conversion going? You've got 3,000 leads. They're not looking for houses, they're looking for free tickets.
Yeah.
So the idea of bird dogging can often, if you're doing it as a transaction, like you're sort of discussing, I think in this case, if it's not a transaction and you're being genuine, I think it's okay. We get the same thing. We're not supposed to accept gifts, but we still get bottles of wine and thank you cards. And I've had deals fall apart and then clients try to send me money right? And say, oh, thank you so much. Here's $1,500. I feel bad that, you spent 3 months or 6 months and it didn't
Actually,
work
it was
out.
22,000.
Right. You're like, hey, but now we're all starting to put in termination clauses into our Schedule A's, and we're starting to have these conversations and set expectations from the beginning to say, you don't need to feel bad. This is all part of the process. Again, retainers, the idea of retainers, pre-charging people is coming up more commonly in conversation, something that may, and probably in 26 or 27, become something that we're allowed to do, only because we're all spending way more money than we used to marketing properties. So things are changing a little bit. So rewards for referrals, yes, you do have to be careful of bird dogging, but if you keep it simple and genuine in your heart and you're not compensating,
No, I agree
no,
with
it's
what
true.
you said.
Yeah.
If I
No,
did-
everything you have to do, you have to remember, in the worst case scenario, you have to defend yourself. And if you can prove that you've had a 5-year relationship and they were your friend and you were just taking them out for a meal, and it wasn't a prerequisite to qualify for a sale, it's a relationship. And Rico would never be able to prove that it's bird dogging, because you're not doing it in relation to, if you give me this, I will give you that.
That's right. 'Cause I mean, if there was no conversation that I'll give you this for that.
Correct.
It's just,
Right. It's when you actively say, bring me leads, Mr. Uber driver, Mr. Home Depot worker, and you create a pseudo sub business. And we know what happens. Most of those, I'll buy your house for cash, handwritten notes, those companies, they're actually real estate agents in disguise, trying to manipulate the situation and get easy business. And they will give kickbacks. I think kickbacks are bird dog fees. If a client says, hey, I'll work with you, but I want half the commission back after closing, legally they're entitled to it because they're a party to the trade, but I still think it's bird dogging, because if I said no, I wouldn't have the business. So I'm now financially incentivized, and they don't want it off the purchase price. They want cash back. And then we get into the conversation of mortgage fraud. You want $10,000 back, and there's loads of agents in the GTA that'll do it, right? They'll keep 5 and give 10 back to keep getting more business. And you tell me that's not bird dogging, we can argue all night long. Dirty business. All right, 5-star reviews. What's it say here? If your purchasing or selling experience exceeded your expectations, would you be so kind as to give me a brief review? I'd also like your permission to use this in my advertising and marketing.
Do you need permission to use your advertising and marketing on Google?
Yes, only because now you need to prove the legitimacy of the review. We used to be able to, and almost 90% of my reviews are handwritten notes, right? Oh, thank you, Mike. I do a lot of work with senior citizens. They appreciate the care and the communication and the attention. They don't want the fast pace, I'm too busy. So I have a lot of handwritten notes, and I'll give them to my marketing guy, and I'll be like, hey, here you go for the team. And he goes, I can't verify this on Google. And I'm like, it has to be Google. Yeah. So all of our reviews for our team, we channel them through Google.
Yeah,
So you can prove that it's authentic. Because I guess you can pay for referrals now online, and and you can get chat bots to give you referrals, and the online world is becoming harder. But when I bring my binder and I open up years of handwritten thank you notes, it has the same effect.
Yeah.
But the social media marketing of it, if you're going to put it out there and say, John Smith says the Walker team is the absolute best, and it would be good to have some credibility behind that. John Smith, Google review, blah, 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 blah.
So sorry, but my question is, by posting on Google a
Mhm.
review.
Yeah.
Is that automatically not consent to advertise that in your marketing?
Yes,
Like they're putting it on the internet.
Correct.
I'm just-
it's a public forum. If it's public, it's public. We have no control or say over that, right? It's where you get into the argument if someone gave you a referral and then they see a social media post and then they're like, well, hey, you know what I mean? I don't want my name plastered all over the internet. It's just about communicating expectations. And this is a great opportunity to broach the conversation of referrals and how important they are to our business at the beginning, right? And I see too, like a lot of the great agents, they'll get referrals from non-clients. They'll get referrals from leads. They'll get referrals from oh, so-and-so helped me. It wasn't the right time for me to buy or sell right now, but they gave me the information I needed. I would highly recommend it. Those are great referrals because they're not just, hey, he did a great job selling my house. It's, he didn't sell my house and he's still great, right? So that's a good opportunity when we're setting expectations and we're talking about forms of communication, just to bring it up. Hey, are you comfortable giving a referral? Would you mind if we used it in social media? No? Okay, perfect. Great. No, it's wonderful. Oh, you'll write me a handwritten note at the end and I can pin it on my wall and, pat myself on the back. Great. But that's, again, another form of communication. Do you guys do handwritten notes? Do you do any of that?
We have a lot of different cards we do.
Yeah.
I cheat and use handwriting because I try to systematize everything.
Yeah.
So I get it printed with handwriting.
Yes.
And
Well, you've got thousands of Christmas cards. Eric has a stamp. You just stamp, boom, like a big stamp with what I do is the same thing. I order them printed from the printer, or one year I made stickers that were the same size. So I customized the sticker and then my kids stickered all of my Christmas cards. People really responded well to that because I was able to put in an authentic family photo and it was tacky and it was, what I mean? But they loved it.
For sale in Georgian Bay, or is this not recent, but are you doing your own Christmas card?
We all do. So for sale in Georgian Bay, we all work quasi-independent. So what they always say is it's our business within their business. We can be as big or as small as we want to be within their business as long as we follow their branding and their rules and regulations. So they give us the cards, they approve which cards we use, and then it's up to us to work our database and work our sphere and all of that, right?
Are they ever touching your database?
No.
Not without.
No, not without consent or unless it's shared. Like team leads that come in, they come to a centralized lead pool and they go on rotation. And I'm with you. I don't think rotation is the best business function. It's the most fair, right? You know what I mean? You're next, you're next, you're next.
Yeah, I would.
Right? But then we also had to separate buyer leads, listing leads, lease leads, commercial leads, because what started happening was one person would get a listing lead, the next person would get a lease lead. And it's like, no. So like for me, I don't do leases. It's just a personal thing. I will for friends and family, but I'll refer that to a team partner or a team agent.
It's like the
And they
same
can-
amount of work.
It's more work and more liability too.
Give it to the team.
Oh, I don't take a cut. I don't take any part of that.
There's
Right.
leases they don't do. They won't do leases.
Well, if you think about it in terms of a function of business, and we can look at some of the other mega teams, number one in units this year, 70%, 60% of that is leases,
Oh, really?
right? Like a huge number of units is done in leases.
Who is this for?
I'm just in general. I'm not talking about anyone specifically,
Sorry.
but usually, well,
They count as a deal is what he said.
right, at least counts as a deal. So if you can grind it out in the GTA and do 100 leases, you're a top agent, even though you only made 20 grand,
I see.
right? So I avoid leases only because my time value proposition is different. And again, it's for clients, it's for family. And if I think that that'll be a lease and then a purchase, or I sell their house and they go into, then it's totally different. But if someone calls me and say, oh, I'm looking for an apartment, I say, yep, here you go. Jacob, Brian, anybody on the team wants a lease, sharpen your skills,
Totally.
away you go, right? I don't need the headaches for $287. It's just not worth to me.
No, the marketing package is all your whole commission.
That's it.
The way you market things. I guess you could just take a picture, but
Well, and the reason I'm in this business and my wife and I have always lived this life is we call ourselves income efficiency experts. We work as little as possible and make as much as we can.
I like that.
there's a book called The 4-Hour Work Week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We talk about 10X easier than 2X and all the rest of it. And we're at that stage now where it's like, okay, we can either maximize our time and make the most amount of money in the least amount of time, which doesn't give you huge returns, but you get huge amounts of free time. So we both basically make above average full-time incomes, but people joke that we're retired.
Yeah.
Right? Up until I became broker of record, everyone was like, do you ever work? I'm like, I work all the time every day. I love what I do, but I never work. Right? And that's just how it goes. And when prices jumped up here finally, right? Because we used to $180, $1,000, you know what I mean? $1,800 a paycheck. Like now, poof, you know what I mean? You can really do well if you focus your attention.
Somebody only had 300 grand and round them up to tiny.
So side 13, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Again, role play. It's telling me to get you guys to pull out your participants guide and do some role playing. So we'll just jump over that. But don't be afraid to ask for referrals. Again, the same broker of record that told me not to communicate with clients after the deal. Imagine how early my business was. Like, I didn't get referrals. I didn't ask for reviews. I felt that I didn't have a claim of ownership to them. And it's not a claim of ownership when you develop a relationship. And I'm sure you've met lots of people that when the deal's done, you're like, oh, you're not on my list anymore. I'm never working with you again. Right, exactly. So this to me should come up early in the conversation. And I think that's why in this Ignite program, it's talking about the communication with the buyers and sellers at the beginning to bring this up early. It is harder, and I fall prey to this after the deal is closed, to go and be like, hey, here's your basket, here's your gift. Hey, if you're happy with my services, and like, how do you feel when they're like, I'm not gonna give a review? And you're like, oh shit, what did I do wrong? Some people like, I don't give reviews for anything. I ask for them, but I'm not a keyboard warrior. Be like, oh, I had dinner today at this new restaurant and the straw was bent. I got more things to do with my time than monkey with that stuff.
With Monica Reynolds, I don't know if I agree with it 100%, but she says to set the expectation that I'm going to give you a referral at the start of the transaction. You're like, oh, and by the way, I'm going to ask you for the names of 2 people.
Yep.
And then every time you see them, have you come up with those 2 names yet?
That is classic sales. I remember when I was selling Cutco. You guys know Cut like the knives.
Oh,
I went to culinary school, to college, and my first summer job, I was like, what am I going to do? Because I want to do lots. So I was cooking, but when you're young, you don't get a lot of hours.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I'll go into sales. Everybody's like, oh, sales. So I joined Cutco, and I was a Green Beret on the top sales team. I got Rookie of the Year. And like, it was just one of those, but it's the same thing. They talked about the first opportunity to say, hey, do you know anyone else that cuts food? Can you write down 4 names of people? And that's how you build a referral database. But we're going back a few years before computer databases and CRMs were a thing.
yeah.
So the referral and word of mouth was everything back when we did that.
It's still,
That type of, it still is.
still keep it on the Rolodex.
Well, and that's the
That's
thing I find with social. I don't have beef with social media, but my beef with social
I got beef with
media
social media.
is that if people, it's about what you're putting out there. I'm not saying we're experts, but it's one thing to add value, but people spend all their time just being on social media.
Yes.
And I think there's a difference between being entertaining and getting likes on social media and someone thinking, oh, I need someone to represent me the biggest transaction of my life.
Absolutely.
I'm
You
not
can
gonna
find
be
some
that
of the most
person.
popular TikTok realtors out there. And when you look at their production, they're not doing much.
She went to this example. She told me somebody was great. I said, Keller Williams is open book. Let's just call her up.
Brand awareness is not the same thing as brand loyalty. And just because they know who you are does not mean that they're the person they want.
Yeah. I used to do billboards and radio ads, and it created tons. I hated it. I had to stop because I'd be at Walmart with my wife. And people would be like, hey, you're Mike Segan. We see your face on the billboard. I heard your radio ad. And I'm like, cool. You thinking of buying and selling our house? No. But we're high five. And I didn't see, I saw a rise in business, but not directly associated with that. It just gave me a little bit more street credit when I was doing my presentations that people saw me around town. But it's the same thing. And we see a lot of them where it's like, I watch it and I'm like, I would never do business with someone who puts this out in public. And once it's out, you're never getting it back.
Or if you have that much time to put into a massive, fully produced video, why aren't you busy with like real estate? But that's my beef. Sorry.
Well, but then when you think of the team thing, it's nice to have someone on your team like a Brian who is really good at that, because now I can have that rub off a little bit on me and I can ask him for help, which for a different generation is like the biggest boost ever. But again, we've got a new social media director on salary now, paying like a real salary.
Interesting.
And like, my point is she's got to earn it. Like, we do not, in this business, you do not pay an employee that cannot generate at least their salary in business, whether it's personal referrals or adding to your brand awareness or your goodwill in the community, whatever it is. So I'm hesitant to pay a full salary to a social media marketing manager or whatever it is. And what she puts out is entertainment. And it's now she's got our agents dancing and doing things and like, we got 900 views. And I'm like, 900 views? Like, are we bragging about 900 views? Should we? I don't know. I don't think we should. You know what I mean? Like
900 names and phone numbers and email address. Love it.
with people with intent. I would rather, and I do this, I'll go to a community event and I'll spend a day at a community barbecue and I'll come home with 8 or 9 real leads, direct conversations, face to face, and then hundreds of other names that entered into a draw to win a hoodie or whatever it is. And to me, it's about communication and relationships. It's like dating. I just want that initial icebreaker so that when we do start talking, it's not awkward, right? And you don't have to do business with me, but you're going to get to know me. And eventually, yeah, I'll get a phone call saying, hey, we met at the barbecue 3 years ago. And I'll go,
If you think of real estate, think of me.
yeah, that's it.
And if people said half.
If you see anything from the Walker team, I didn't put it up.
But that's the beauty of a team. If old guys like you and I were destined to just take our business that we had back in early 2000 and just carry the same thing forward, we'd be like all the dinosaurs that are disappearing. But with the youth and the team aspect of it, we are shown a different way. We may not be comfortable with it. We may not do it, but we've got the people surrounding us that can help usher in the next generation. And that's what you're building legacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I kind of.
I didn't mean to offend you if I called you old, but we've got the gray hair. It kind of.
I
I don't like it the way it's used, but I do see it a useful way it's used.
Absolutely.
So some of the stuff behind the scenes I've done, you can upload your database, you can market right to them. That to me is genius.
Once you have enough followers, communicating with them, sending them invitations, the touches, the 36 touches, the 55 touches, whatever the new map is for touching people, we'll just touch everybody everywhere, right? Like, you got to come up with a new word than touching. We're all going to get in trouble. But it's just that way of doing it. So I agree. Social media has a valuable tool. The problem I have with it is by the time I'm a slow developer of new tech, by the time I come around to understanding it, it's already on to the next craze. That's why we've hired somebody, hopefully, that can be ahead of the curve and show us what's coming next,
It's
right?
not how I make a living.
No.
So it doesn't mean nothing.
I agree, but I also just think, sorry, not on your point, on Michael's point about adoption and everything. But if you just took half the time people invest in social media and put it into your database,
What we're talking about is addiction, though, right? Like, you see it with children. I see it with my kids. I yell at them all the time. I had to get my 13-year-old a phone for safety reasons, starting to go to youth groups and do things and sleepovers, and you know what I mean? There's been a few times where I get the phone call of a crying kid and I got to jump in the car and go save the day. But what comes with that now is this. And I'm to blame. I feel bad but I tell I'm only on this for work. I'm only sitting here at the dining room of my computer because I want to be near everybody.
Right.
But I'm not doing this because I'm addicted to entertainment. I'm doing this because, unfortunately, the world now lives in these devices. So it's kind of like this catch-22, but then the mental health. And I tell people that, you know what I mean? The more time I'm on a screen, the worse my mental health is, the more irritable I am. I can't manage my anxiety. I get a lot of physical anxiety. My brain is pretty good at processing logic, but my body will hold it like crazy. I'll feel like I'm dying, right? So you have to figure all of these things out. And I've learned the more time I'm on a screen, the worse it gets. And social media I tell my kids, it's junk food for your brain.
It is.
It's legitimate manipulation, subliminal messaging, direct messaging. It's absolutely terrifying. When we were kids, we had to take YouTube away because there was these creepy weirdos who were embedding clips in kids' videos with messages of suicide, right? And there was a wave of 8-year-old kids committing suicide, and it was just this unbearable. So we took it away. Took it away.
We can log off of this.
So
Okay.
Aldrich
Nobody's
can
on
go
here. So
outside
Aldrich
with
can
dogs.
leave and go home.
Okay, Aldrich, sorry.
I'm gonna log out.
Yeah,
now.
are we good?
Yeah, thanks.
I didn't-
Thank
again,
you.
see, like this